First, I want to welcome us all to this forum where we are going to be discussing a very important issue that has become topical for quite some time. And as I welcome you to this forum, our representative from Abuja, the Federal Commissioner representing Delta State in the Revenue Mobilization Allocation Fiscal Commission, Honorable Andrew Agbaga. I want to thank the Commission for finding it necessary to start these levels of consultation with the people in the various states before they get to the zonal events that will eventually lead to their recommendations to the federal government after their various meetings. For quite some time, a lot of talk has gone on concerning the revenue allocation. It's very unfortunate that in this country, we are still operating with revenue allocation formula that was actually reviewed in 1992, and only with an executive order, there was some little amendment sometime during the Obasanjo's regime. We must truly find out where is the challenge. And when we find out where that challenge is, we need to be able to solve that problem. Otherwise, the good intentions of the Revenue Mobilization Allocation Fiscal Commission will not be given birth to. No matter how much we propose, no matter our good intentions, it appears to me that there is a challenge on the path of getting revenue formulas actually executed the way they ought to be because of some limitation in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And that is an aspect that we need to attend to. But before I go into that, it is very important that we register that this particular forum that is being organized here by our representative, Federal Commissioner in the RMAFC, is a welcome idea because we believe that in this process we're able to speak out our minds, and I hope that we'll be able to, through the liaison between the Ministry of Finance and the Office of the Federal Commissioner, that we're able to put up a proper committee that will be able to harness our views that will be presented at the zonal events. There is no doubt that for good governance in this country and for sustainable development, the vertical allocation is important that it is revisited in such a manner that more money goes back to the sub-national units in our federation. It's very, very important because at the moment, the federal government is taking too much of the totality of the revenue of the federation, to an extent that the subnational governments, including the states and local governments, are actually shortchanged and do not have enough resources. And that the government closest to the people, they are the government that understands truly the dear needs of our people. And they are the governments that can truly develop their various localities in such a manner that the impact of governance will be felt in our various communities. The states obviously are burdened with a lot of responsibility, there's no doubt as to that. And now with the security challenges that we have across the nation, the states are even further burdened. And recently, there's been a lot of cry concerning restructuring and the need to devolve more powers to the states and even to the local governments for efficiency and effectiveness of governance. There is no doubt that there are so many things that the federal government oversees as at today that will be better and more effectively handled by the states. And even when today they are not with the functions are not directly with the states are still doing a lot to try to see what they can do to impact positively on the lives of their people. So looking forward to a situation where in the next few weeks and months with the constitutional amendment, where more powers will be devolved to the subnational governments, it's only important that this great revisit to the vertical allocation in the revenue formula is given a prime place. And we hope that your actions and the decisions and the recommendations that you make will actually see the light of the day, and that there will be a laying of this before the National Assembly. Because as of today, the amount that the states and the local governments take home from the federation account, I want to put it in this way, the amounts now that can truly not take them home from Abuja, the values are getting so low, so minimal, that all states are struggling to pay salaries, and it ought not to be so. And when you turn your states and your local governments to salary-paying governments, you have actually destroyed the fabric of development in the nation, and that ought not to be at all. We also believe that although you're not discussing that in this meet, that even as you continue to consider the various issues in your horizontal allocation within and among states, that there is a need to also rework some of the issues. We know that as of today, you have issues on equality, you use population, you also talk about the issues of terrain, internal revenue generation. But when you're talking of the issues of terrain, a lot of emphasis is being paid to what we talk about, desertification. A lot of emphasis is being paid to massive expanses of land. But we do not have enough emphasis on what we're seeing in the riverine area, the creeks that are underdeveloped, that are the most difficult terrains to actually develop, far beyond whatever you're having within other parts of the country. It's important that your committee sometimes will need to have a tour of some of these creeks so that you have a real-world view of what the people are truly going through and what levels of expenditure you truly need to give life to the people that actually live in these areas. I believe that states like Delta and many states in the Niger Delta that are exposed, that have several of their communities living within this terrain, ought to receive far, far more when it comes to the issue of the horizontal processes that lead to the various indices that you use. Unfortunately, many of our people are not fully schooled as to the kind of challenges that we have. So you continue to hear in the press, oh, what are they doing with their 13% derivation? What are they doing with this? They've forgotten that the soil types are not the same. If you're going to build a road now, 1 kilometer, even 2 kilometers of road in the riverine area, you just find that within that 2 kilometers of road, you may have to crisscross 3, 4, or 5 creeks. And that is a huge sum of money. And you may find yourself excavating very deep. Whereas in some other parts of this nation, upland, even including the upland within the south, you just find that you don't have to spend much money because the soil types are soil that you can easily just tar roads, but it's not the same when we get involved in the development of road infrastructure within the riverine area. So a lot of study has to be done, and it's important that we see with our own eyes by moving around and truly finding out the pains of the people. We do also believe that considering your vertical allocation, I'm glad that you've already read out the percentages at the moment. As we did in our submission to the National Assembly committee that came concerning the constitutional review, we actually do believe that all put together, the federal government should not be entitled to more than 40% at the maximum. That will use the language. We don't even think that they should have up to that. But the totality of the revenue accruing to the federal government should not be more than 40%. And the 60% or more that is left should actually be allocated between the subnational governments, the states, and the local government councils. That is our view on that. And we've been talking about the issue of derivation. Unfortunately, we tend to read it the way just for our comfort. The Constitution, even as it stands today, says at least. So it has not kept a maximum. It only has stated at least 13%. And considering the kind of things we go through, it's important that that Constitution is read in the way it ought to be read, so that we do things the way it ought to be done. There are lots and lots of challenges in our nation, and we do agree, but there are lots and lots of challenges in the Niger Delta state, the kind of challenges that we do not face anywhere else. Our people are actually in pains, and most of the oil companies that exploit us and do the kind of things, yes, we agree that there is a need to share. Yes, there is a need to share nationally because we are a united country. But we must also realize that there are people who are suffering health-wise. There are people whose economies are totally being destroyed. And there are people who do not know what is going to happen to their children in the future because they do not know what type of environment they are living for those children. And that now means that even with the current Constitution, we should not stick to that what you call the lowest, the 13%, because the Constitution says at least. We should reasonably think, and we should find ways of increasing the allocation by derivation to the oil-producing states, considering the amount of damage and the fact that we're actually, through the exploration processes, destroying the ecosystem of the people. I think it's very important that we try to address all this. Unfortunately, even the 13% many times we don't truly get them as it ought to be, because all manners of intrigues do go on. But I must actually commend Ramfak, because in very recent times, you have taken certain decisions that have been applauded by the Niger Delta states, because you have had to dig deep and to be able to cause some reforms to be made, even when it's being made gradually. It's not coming in full at a time. And I still believe that there are so many recoveries, so many underpayments that ought to be made, and we must continue to ensure that the federal government continues to commit to paying back all that it has unjustly taken from the Niger Delta states. We also believe that there are so many parastatals at the federal level that are actually parastatals of the Federation, and therefore every money accruing to them should actually come into the Federation account. We know that you people are working hard to ensure that, but we also know that all manners of intrigues are going on in there, and that full remittances are not being done. In the last few months, we have seen situations where, because of decisions taken at a particular level, even at the federal government level, it impacts very negatively on the remissions that come into the FAC account, and eventually the remissions that come to the states and local governments. It's not a fair decision. If we're in a federation, all federating units must be treated with respect. And we believe that everybody has the right to be part of the decision-making process. And we do hope that in looking through this, that the RMAFC should actually look very closely at such remittances in the past few months where NNPC appeared to be challenged by certain decisions and did not have full remissions into the Federation account. As we look forward to the new Revenue Allocation Formula that is coming forth, we hope that you're going to come up with something that is fair, something that is justiciable, and something that is equitable. But the challenge that I did say from the beginning is that when you have done all this good work, which you believe you and your colleagues will do, you're going to eventually, by the constitution of our federal government, you're going to lay this before the president. And then the president ought to, from our constitution, lay before the National Assembly. There is a challenge there. There has always been a challenge there. There are free federating units, as we put it now, although the local governments and the states are considered as one of the subnational governments. So when the revenue allocation formula is such that, as proposed, is such that it does not favor the federal government, and you lay it, what is there in our laws that will ensure that Mr. President lays it before the National Assembly? I have said this to your committee. We have said this to the Constitution Review Committee. And we hope that this will be done because you're supposed to be an independent commission, a commission on behalf of all federating units, the component parts of the federation. They cannot tie your hands. The Constitution ought to be amended to enable the chairman of the Revenue Allocation and Fiscal Commission to directly lay before the National Assembly whatever review that it has come up with, so that nobody stands it down. We are not saying that Mr. President today will stand it down, but what if he decides to stand it down? It means that all the work that you have done would have become useless. So we need to attend to the issues of our laws. And I use this opportunity to call on the National Assembly that they must do what is right in this stead. A nation is a nation, a federation is a federation with federating units. And we must guide that principle of justice and fairness, and the independence of the Revenue Allocation, Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission must be entrenched in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And they must ensure that this aspect of the Constitution is reviewed so that with the amendment, the chairman of the Commission should be able to directly lay before the National Assembly whatever review that you would come up with. And then let the debates go on at that level and let actions be taken. Then we know that with the totality of the persons that represent every individual constituency in the National Assembly, that the voices of the people would have been heard. So I wish us well and pray that at the end of the day, there will be a great work. I'm hoping that the great work will also not be swept under the carpet. God bless you all.
Today for this national assignment on sensitization on the typical issue of the review of the existing vertical revenue allocation formula that has been in operation over a long period. Before moving further, permit me to thank His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Delta State, Senator Dr. Ifeanyi for making this gathering possible. May I also commend Your Excellency for the giant stride in governance which are visible in the area of skill acquisition, entrepreneurship program for the youth, improved standard education, microcredit scheme, the gigantic new secretariat for conducive working environment for the workers of the state, road rehabilitation and constructions, evenly spread political appointment across the state, just to mention a few. We pray that the Almighty God will continue to protect, guide, direct, reward you for your effort in service to humanity. Furthermore, I congratulate us, the people of Delta State, as we celebrate the 30th anniversary. We thank God for the grace to witness this event. Your Excellency, our reason of gathering here today is to inform every one of us what Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission have in place. And what is this? The Revenue Allocation Formula that have been in existence for over 28 years to be reviewed. RMAFC, which is Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission, is one of the constitutional functions as stated in the 1999 Constitution. is empowered to review from time to time the revenue allocation formula and principles in operation to ensure conformity with changing realities, provided that any formula which has been accepted by an act of the National Assembly shall remain in force for not less than 5 years from the date of commencement of the act. All previous attempts to review this formula since 28 years ago has not seen the light of the day. Why are we here? The board considered it that it's expedient for us to review this formula. The last review was in 1992, as I just said. The political structure of the country has since changed with the creation of 6 additional states in 1996, which brought the number of 6 to 36 states. Correspondingly, the number of local government councils has increased from 580 to 774. There have been some considerable changes arising from policy reform that altered the relative shares of responsibility of the various tiers of government, such as privatization, lingering controversies over funding of primary education, primary health care, etc., etc. Inadequate and decaying infrastructure, heightening widespread internal security challenges across the country, ecological changes like global warming, diversification floodings, and population explosion. Inability of the vertical formula to adequately address the apparent mismatch between the statutorily assigned functions and tax powers of the 3 tiers of government. There have been agitations across the country. The current vertical revenue formula arose from the modification order issued by the then president in May 2002, as amended in July 2002, followed by the Treasury Circular. It is a consideration of the above that the Commission is very eager to review holistically the vertical revenue sharing arrangement. The current similar arrangement is as follows. The federal government is 52.6%, states 26.7%, local government 20.6%. The federal government is further shared into 1, consolidated revenue fund is 48.5%, federal capital territory 1%, development natural resources 1.68%, ecological fund 1%, stabilization fund 0.5%. In compliance with the foregoing constitutional provision, because of the changes in socio-economic and political dynamics of the nation, the Commission has been prompted and compelled to commence full-scale engagement of respective of various stakeholders. That is why we are here today. I think I would believe that all the stakeholders are present here. The executive, the legislature, judiciary, organized labor, civil society, and all of you. I wish to reiterate that the Commission is greatly disastrous to provide within the shortest time. Our plan, the plan we have is to between now and December, it should be ready and be presented to the President. On this note, I want to thank Your Excellency again, once again, for being part of this program. Distinguished legislative man, I think I will suggest or will recommend that every representative here should form a committee to come out with our own recommendation. Within the next few weeks, there will be another program like this, for zonal program, where all the states in the south-south will converge, either in this Port Harcourt, but it has to be decided. That is where our recommendation will be accepted. So we believe that the local government people should sit down properly, articulate their point, all the civil society organizations articulate their point, and then forward it to the committee. Thank you.
It is important for me to seize this opportunity to crave your indulgence to let the people from Abuja, the committee, understand the fact that Delta State is a very special state. Special state in the sense, for one, that it's a state that has more than 20 capital cities, because all the commercial cities in Delta could be adjudged to be state capitals in themselves. As we do this sensitization, and when you come back for your verification exercise and you have the opportunity to actually crisscross Delta State, you will find out there are so many other big commercial centers. For instance, Agbo, Saple, Warri, Burutu, Patani, Uele, and the likes you will see. You will also find out as you crisscross when you come back for your verification, because we need to begin that sensitization from now. You will find out that the state is one of those states that it will take you like 5 hours to move from one corner of the state to the other side of the state. From here to Warri, for instance, will take you close to 3 hours. And if we were to have a road from Warri to Buru to Escravos, that will clearly be for another 2 hours, as the case might be. Unfortunately, when you see Delta State in the map of Nigeria, it looks like it's a very small state. But in the real sense of it, it's extremely very large in the real sense of it. You will also find out when you come back to do your verification that Delta State has very large area of upland and also has very large area of riverine. And so when you are, for instance, constructing a road in Delta State in the riverine area, for maybe a 1 kilometer space of road, the cost of that will be enough for you to actually do like 10 kilometers in places like Bauchi, as the case might be. The population of Delta State is such that you will find it difficult to actually believe that the number of local government areas that you have in Kano should actually be more than the one in Delta State. These are variables and indices that you need to put together to be able to populate the platform on which the revenue allocation will be adjudged at the end of the day. It's a very special exercise, Your Excellency, because this exercise is going to dovetail into the computation of the indices that will make up the sharing formula between the states and, of course, between the states and the federal government and local government areas. We have opportunities sometimes where we make some arguments that there are certain activities of federal government that should actually be devolved back to the states. For instance, there is no reason why we should have federal housing, for instance, ministry, and they are budgeted for. Ordinarily, one would have thought that the issue of housing, the issue of environment, water resources, and all that should actually be devolved to all the states of the federation.